welcome to the 2026 Integrated Engineering Full Throttle Launch. Today, I'm sitting with Brandon, Carter, and Pete, and we're gonna kind of talk about all the exciting stuff that is in this Full Throttle Launch. To start, it sounds silly, but Pete, kind of explain to us really briefly about what Integrated Engineering's Full Throttle Launch is.
Yeah, I mean, that's super simple, to be honest with you. I mean, we were up to 40, 50 product releases a year and doing one a week. Nobody wants to get 50 new product release emails on our email list a year. We felt like we needed to have a credible way to really be able to stop and slow down, kind of celebrate with people, have the time to go through all these products and roll them out in a coherent fashion that doesn't torture you guys with just being emailed to death and Facebook bombed to death. So we've consolidated into a couple of big launch events a year, and we're going to slow down and smell the roses a little bit.
Awesome. Well, let's just jump right into it. We have a bunch of really cool stuff to talk about. Let's start with B9A4. I know that the B9A4 community has been pretty pleased with what we put out so far, but I know that they've been pretty adamantly hounding us about stage 3, and I think it's about time we talk about it.
Yeah, I think so. So, like you said, they've been hounding us a little bit, but we took the right method with this and relayed the groundwork for stage 1 and 2 so that we were ready to move into stage 3, full bore, no compromise. We did that. Now we've been retesting a bunch of turbos and doing all the dev work for stage 3, have some awesome power results, and I'm super excited about how drivable it is, how much power it makes. It's really like the stage 3 with no compromise that you should be looking for.
So on that point, how much power are we expecting on pump gas?
Yeah, definitely. So we're over 400 horsepower.
Which is pretty insane. What are stock numbers, you know, off the top of your head? I know it's we're a big bump. Yeah.
220 wheel or something, probably?
Well, it's a tangible bump, so that's good. Then you move on to, I know that we tested a bunch of turbos. We ended up on our own, basically. A little bit of a collaboration with Turbo Systems.
Yeah.
So what can you tell me about that?
We tested 6 or 7 different turbos over the course of an entire quarter just to make sure that we really nailed it on our turbo selection, made sure that we weren't giving anything up. So obviously with a bigger turbo, you're gonna have a little bit of lag coming up on boost. This one minimizes that while still maintaining the peak power goals that we were anticipating for our stage 3 tune. So this is really kind of the no compromise option. And we're able to hide a lot of that lag through the way that we tune the ECU, the way that we tune the TCU shift points for our stage 3 TCU tune. And it's probably the most drivable stage 3 option I've ever been in.
Well, I was gonna ask you, I've driven the car a bunch, just shooting media stuff, and we've been able to maintain the everyday drivability, which I don't typically associate with stage 3. How did you guys kind of land on that?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, the TCU plays a huge role in that, keeping it at the RPM that the turbo is happiest without lugging the engine. And that plays a huge role in just where power is available and when. When you ask for it, it's there. When you're not asking for it, it might be under the boost threshold, but it jumps up to where it can respond right away. And then on the ECU side, we work a lot with ignition angle mapping and cam timing and the peak load targets to make sure that everything is deliverable as soon as possible.
So we talked about the difference between stock power numbers versus where we ended up on the stage 3 tune. I'm sure it'll be a question with customers of this community about how do we maintain the reliability, or what was our thought process when approaching it with a reliability standpoint?
Right. So obviously that's a huge concern when you're talking big power. One of the ways we do that is by managing torque through the rev range. So we try to keep it under that known safe 400 foot-pound mark and just drag that huge torque plateau out as far as we can to make the big horsepower numbers. But in addition to just knowing the safe limits of some of the stock bottom end components, we have our own advanced safety mechanisms that'll kick in whenever anything is wrong. A good example of that is our auto protect strategy. It's something that these ECUs don't really come with out of the box, but we go in, add custom code, and it will actually trigger anytime the ignition correction exceeds our threshold values to make sure that if you have a failing injector that's causing that cylinder to run a little leaner than the rest, or if you have poor fuel quality out of a unknown pump, and it's just a little less octane than they might have advertised to you, Sometimes things like that happen, and there's really no real safety nets other than the fact that there's an ignition control system that can reduce it. Ours takes that, it takes what exists factory and sets a hard threshold that says, if anything is wrong, if anything needs to pull out more than we deem acceptable, pull the power back.
Which is amazing to think that, I don't know, nowadays we can do stuff like this where it's like we're effectively doubling the horsepower,
right,
and still do it in a reliable, fun way that's drivable and all that stuff.
I borrowed Shane, the warehouse manager's car. Thanks, Shane. And drove that for a couple of days because I wanted to be able to talk about it kind of authentically in this. And I know you guys always do awesome work, but I just wanted to get hands-on. See, that thing rips. So a couple of things I noticed right off the bat is that Turbo Systems turbo is ball bearing, and I can get, I don't know how much boost, but enough to pass and stuff like that at like 2,000 or 2,500 RPM if I just stand on it for a minute. And you've got plenty of power, like torque is really up by around 3,000. So power to weight wise, this is a real performer now. It's really kind of impressive what that car can do for the money, for a couple $1,000 in mods. And these guys have been a little bit bashful maybe about the amount of testing that goes into this thing, well, into all of our calibrations. But not only do we do the auto protect thing where we cut cylinders and stuff if we have some knock on one cylinder, but I know we drive them down to sea level. We beat the crap out of them down in Death Valley and stuff. These guys do wild stuff like blocking off intercoolers and beating the crap out of them on the dyno until the intake air temps are just insane, and making sure that it is just locked down 7 ways from Sunday. It is bulletproof to the nines.
One of the things we've done in the past that I thought was genius. I don't know whose idea it was, honestly, but we had several different people around the office drive it because we all kind of drive it a little bit different. And it was amazing how much good data we got in terms of, like, I don't know, you think about the idea of some people just floor it everywhere. Some people want to drive it as a normal car. Every now and then calibrators or leadership or whatever will take the cars for extended drives and or just drive them for a while. And I think that's pretty cool that we get just the feedback from every type of driver over a long period of time. We're not just setting the numbers and then releasing. There's crazy amounts of testing here for that.
Right. And to add to that, we have an extensive beta program where we get even more data and more feedback from real world customers.
Mostly just Carol.
Yeah, sometimes just a couple customers.
Yeah. Just kidding, Carol.
But yeah, we get a huge amount of data and feedback before we ever go live with something like this, just to make sure that every box has been checked, every type of driver has been accounted for and accommodated to.
Yeah. Well, to me, that's really important because an A4 is meant to be kind of all-encompassing, right? Like there's so many different drivers that drive. I mean, realistically, a lot of what we do, maybe not the RS6, RS7, but like a lot of these cars are meant to be everything to everyone, and we're just making that more accessible for people that want more fun. So we've developed the software in tandem with some awesome hardware from Turbo Systems. But also, you guys have another supplementary piece that supports that tune as well.
Yeah, so as we're upgrading the turbo, we want to just complete the whole suite. So we're adding the V9 A4 charge pipes to go with our intercooler and the turbo, just to make that whole system as free and open flowing as possible.
And future proofing,
Doesn't it also delete a muffler?
Yeah, it does remove the muffler as well. So you're going to get a lot more of that, intake sound and all of that through the whole range of power. And it's going to, it's an aluminum part, so it's going to last a lot longer. Really nice silicone hoses. Overall, it's going to be.
I'm going to do it specifically.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it specifically for the sound.
I mean, the big deal too with all of our charge pipes is that a lot of aftermarket charge pipes, they just do a little bead roll on the ends of the soft aluminum pipe. Our pipes all have machined aluminum, we call them grip lock couplers on the ends, where we've got really good ridges basically machined into the actual coupler. And the coupler being billet is hard. So you can put whatever hose clamp on it. We include hose clamps, and it won't crush down like a soft aluminum pipe. But the big thing is a lot of people upgrade charge pipes and they don't realize they're almost inducing a reliability problem because the little bead roll ends, they slip off like left and right. And now you're playing with hairspray and T-bolt clamps and all this. With our solution, you get the flow upgrades and you get the little sound increase, but that you never have to mess with it either. That's like, they're a little more money because we do that, and billet ends are expensive compared to just a little bead roll. But it's one of those things where if you've ever been boosting in traffic or whatever, and you hear that pop and then you've got no power, you don't need to relive that.
Well, let's be real. No one wants to replace charge pipes more than once.
Yeah.
No one wants to. And beyond that, it's a known fault with a lot of these platforms that this German plastic decides to crack, and you might as well just future-proof it forever. So yeah, that'll be a great addition to it. Speaking on kind of the testing process that we do with calibration, I know that the testing process is at very least as intensive for our suspension. I know that in the past we've very intentionally tried to break things and just see what we can do. What can you tell me about the testing methodology that we did for the B9 and the 8Y?
Every platform that we do pretty extensive testing, not only on the road, but at the track, and in different circumstances around the city as much as we can. So we'll go hit, the really bumpy roads or the really pothole-ridden roads, or out at UMC, just throwing it around the track. So we try to hit all the conditions as much as possible and put quite a bit of miles on the cars. And like you said, same with tuning, we kind of get other people to drive it around and put it in their situation and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty dialed in process now. So we're excited for the new platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny. I think just about anyone here that has a platform that we have suspension for, our employees have full IE suspension, not just to test it because they enjoy it, but we can actually talk about, well, we can maybe tease a little bit of a car that Pete took to the track. Pete has a couple cars he likes to take to the track, but he took an upcoming one that you tested the tires off of, actually, if you want to speak on that at all.
What, the B10 S5?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that car, it's the same thing. I mean, we're trying to approach development kind of holistically on those things. So we got it, and ECU is still locked down, but we're like, let's go out, find out what this thing's good at, find out what it's bad at, beat the crap out of it, and start figuring out how do we want this car to feel when we're done with it. And I think this is a difference between like us and a big box spring manufacturer, for example, where they're cranking out hundreds and hundreds of part numbers. We're literally starting with a desired feel and transformation of that vehicle, and then going out and saying, how do we do that? So we beat the crap out of its stock, and then we got some prototype springs on it and stuff. The car is so heavy. People in the comments will remember, but I can't remember. It's 4,900 pounds or something like that. Yeah, if you drive that thing like 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, and you're an aggressive driver, yeah, I mean, I think I killed a set of Kumo Victor racers or whatever in like 4 sessions or something in the morning. So yeah, we're developing our suspension for it. We're also trying to figure out how to get as much tire underneath it as possible to just make it a credible performance vehicle. I mean, my goal for that car, our stated goal for that car basically is it'll never be a GT3 or a GT3 RS, but I would like it to be where we can get it that a mediate or intermediate driver who does some track days or whatever can go out and run a Porsche club or a BMW club kind of event or whatever, an HPDE day, and have a good engaging session that get 4 sessions in or whatever in a day, and get through it with no limp mode, no other issues. Because yeah, on a hot day, even stock power, you can put that car into limp mode too. It really has some thermal issues that we're gonna have to work through.
Just a testament to our effort there is, I mean, even like the whole sway bar suspension, setup, the sway bars fit off of a different platform, and we're like, that's just not enough. We need to dial it in specifically for this, platform, how the characteristics are going to feel for that specific platform. And then even though we can just simply take something off the shelf and make it fit, it's just not the right thing to do. So we go through that extra process to make it the best we can.
Yeah. And that kind of speaks on the methodology of how we do things at a higher level, like what is IE? And to me, it's a lot of it is the personal approach that we take to all of this stuff. I mean, Pete and Dave started with internals, and you guys made a name for yourself there, and that's still is a very strong name in the internal business, but kind of branching out into tuning and other hardware, I haven't seen that methodology change. So that's it's pretty rad to see everyone on staff really want to just make the best thing that we can.
We're not neurotic at all about stuff.
We're all just very particularly weird in our own ways. But yeah. Speaking on how we kind of approach things, talking about the B10 S5, we are trying to look as far forward as we possibly can, usually. But something actually surprised me with this full throttle that I wasn't expecting, which was billet valve covers for the B8 S4. And that was your baby. I think,
yeah.
Right. First off, they look amazing. I'm very particular about anything billet, to be honest. But yeah, tell me about why we decided to approach not an older platform, but just why did we approach the project of a billet valve cover set for the B8 S4?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it comes back down to functionality. Those cars are getting up in mileage. Maybe they're on their second or third owners by now. Those valve covers are going to start to leak. And if you're going to take the valve covers off, why would you put the cheap plastic ones back on that warp and crack and all kinds of stuff? So first and foremost, we wanted a option to solve that like warping, cracking, kind of cheap plastic feel. And second, we went through a whole bunch of testing in order to kind of future-proof the car. And so these valve covers have the Dash 10 AN line out. They'll fit the factory breathers. You can put a catch can on them. It's all set up so, any future mods are all going to be supported with these valve covers.
What made you guys kind of decide to approach it with future-proofing rather than, because we very easily could have just said it's now metal.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of plastic. What was the mindset of like what took you guys down that road? Was it just a conversation, or was it like, you as an engineer going, this is what I would have done?
Yeah. All of us here are kind of car junkies in the greatest sense of the word. So we're always looking for, what's the next thing? What's the best thing I can put on here? Down the road, what are my options as far as upgrades? And so not only does it give us a little bit of flexibility with our stock PCV setup as far as angles and all that kind of stuff, but we can also use that same fitting, that same method of attachment to upgrade later. So the biggest thing on those cars is the oil starvation or oil consumption issue. And so putting a nice good catch can system on with AN lines, that just makes it, better than anything that's, from the OEM.
Yeah. So, lots of good reasons to basically replace those with billet in the first place, but also just kind of forward thinking about what else we could do to gain some functionality later is pretty cool.
And everything's all serviceable and rebuildable. So like if those breathers start weeping, we can replace the seals and the gaskets. You're not like having to buy a whole new valve cover and all that kind of stuff. So we try to keep it as, user friendly as possible. And then we brought in a bunch of like design elements from the factory supercharger and stuff onto the valve cover. So it all looks like it's supposed to be there. It's a cool product.
Don't listen to them. Anytime it needs a new seal, just buy another set. It's fine.
Those cars are getting to the age now where they're just really fun to modify. A lot of guys are really customizing more when those cars get to that age, because it's not like this brand new thing that you don't want to hack up and do stuff. Now it's like you're seeing guys do more bags and more wide body and more things like that to really make them their own. And so there's that opportunity too, to just have one more channel to kind of have it be your own and have it be a little special, right?
Yeah. Well, and that platform is so insanely capable too.
Yeah.
So now it's just like, hey, here's a little bit of a cheaper price point.
Yeah.
But
let's do some stuff.
Yeah, let's do some stuff. The fact that we all get a shit-eating grin when we say that's a problem. Anything black billet or carbon, super sold on that.
That's the stuff.
Yeah. I remember one of our other designers, Seth, I think when I first started, we did I want to say it was a C7S6 carbon intake. I remember shooting that. I literally came out, I was like, good work, man. That thing's rad looking.
On the S4 platform, you can get the nice carbon lid intake and the billet valve covers.
Yeah, exactly.
All in one.
I've always just loved that look. There's something about billet just amazing quality, right? It just looks quality.
And that platform is super cool because it has red coil packs too. So the red on the black is just super awesome. It's pretty neat.
Exactly. We're making it's a little piece, but like if we're making another piece that's billet. I'll let you kind of speak on everything that it fits because it fits a lot of stuff. But we're making a full oil cap replacement that's billet.
So it does fit 2 liter pretty much across the board, and then it's some like B6 stuff. It's very specific to the cam lock style oil cap, but we've completely redesigned the oil cap from the ground up to match our other billet components under the hood, mainly the washer cap and the wiper delete and the valve covers and stuff like that. But yeah, we've designed everything to work the same way the OEM does, and so it's has like a spring mounted.
Well, I was going to say, it's a full replacement. It's not just a slip cover, which it's important, right? Like it's a totally different product than just a slip cover.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. So basically, we took the same engineering that the OEM uses for their cap, re-engineered it to work with our billet pieces, and then like we make everything from the ground up. So all of the gaskets, the plunger, the spring is all our own stuff. But yeah, it works just like a OEM. It doesn't get stuck. I mean, anybody that's had a billet oil cap that has threads, like they get stuck all the time and they're a mess, and you got to have a tool to take them off. So this is nice. You just push down and it pops right off. So it's pretty cool.
That's rad. What made you guys kind of go that way other than just, because here's the thing, there's nothing inherently wrong with just a slip over other than there's some drawbacks, but what made you guys kind of decide to go the full mile in terms of fully replacing the oil cap?
Yeah. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, to just do the billet piece that goes onto a factory, plunger style, it would take so much work to get it to adhere properly and all that stuff. So we can control the design a lot more. We're not trying to accommodate all of the factory parts. So we get the design that we want that matches everything else we have, and they have all the OEM functionality.
Well, that and fake shit is just lame.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Generally, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's rad that it'll match our washer cap, and to some respect, it matches the finish of our rear wiper delete.
Yeah, it's all the same kind of cohesive design. The B8 valve covers oil cap is the same design, so it's across the board. Try to match everything as much as we can. And then our inspiration for that design was all based on the OEM coolant reservoir caps, and that's something that it makes it nice and cohesive in the engine compartment.
Well, I was going to say, it still fits the OE, what you're seeing. It just happens to be a lot better. Pete, we have historically sold tunes as kind of like this, the industry standard of stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Since we were just speaking about the B9 2-liter stage 3, I want to ask you about something that we implemented a few months ago on the B8 and I think the Mark 7. Tell me a little bit about why we're now doing the Core Pro Apex structure.
Ultimately, our mission, right, is to help unlock the thrill of driving.
Yeah.
And part of that is it needs to be accessible. And one of the problems we were finding is that we keep engineering more and more features and benefits and stuff like that for the hardcore enthusiasts, because we're listening to our customers and we keep building stuff, right? Rolling anti-lag, flex fuel, all this stuff. But all of that comes with a cost to engineer, build, test, and maintain. And so we were like, let's break this up so that the people who aren't interested in all that stuff, that just want some more excitement, they want some more horsepower out of their vehicle, can get in at a more accessible price point, and you can essentially have it your way. Like if you want all the features, that's Apex. That's like the full IE experience, rolling anti-lag, adjustable features, TrueFlex, all of it, right? Pro, I think Carter, you can speak, but on most platforms, Pro is usually stage 2 hardware support and flex fuel. So you get a big bump in power on Pro. And then Core gets you, the IE engineering, the pedal response, the super tested and proven file, but not all the motorsport kind of stuff that the hardcore enthusiasts are looking for.
Well, and you still get a lot of features just within the app on a Core tune as well.
Yeah.
And
you get our mobile, our POWERlink mobile system, data logging, and gauge display, and all that stuff with all of the tunes.
Yeah.
You're just not into all those motorsport features.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is I think that, especially for people that are new to modifying their vehicle, that is kind of like, that's like the base level, right? Is I would do an intake or an exhaust, And then now everyone's spoiled nowadays that like every car is turbocharged, but it's like now you can just do a tune, right? And a stage 1 tune is how I feel it should have been from the factory. That's a whole podcast by itself. But like just getting a core tune is a great step into modifying your vehicle and really realizing what they can do. And then once you're ready, you can just say, I actually do want this feature. And instead of having to buy a feature that maybe you're reluctant about getting originally, now you can just make those incremental steps up and get what you want, right? So Burger King, don't sue us about the have it your way thing. But yeah.
To expand on that, stage 1 is almost always the most horsepower per dollar you'll ever spend. It's the biggest jump in power you're ever going to get because they leave so much on the table for those factory tunes. When we see huge gains just on stage 1. So core file, you get all the power, you get all of our base calibration features. And then the biggest thing about the Core Pro Apex tier system that we've set up is that it allows you to have some of those classic stage 3 features without the entire build sheet. You don't need the entire turbo and intercooler and intake and exhaust and all of the things that go into a full build just to get rolling anti-lag or just to get flex fuel.
Yeah.
Those are now available at any stage by having the stage 1 core file or the stage 1 Pro or the stage 1 Apex file.
Yeah.
It's a way that we can break out what the customer wants versus what we require in order to get there. This removes the requirements. Now you can have it the way that you want it for your build.
Well, and it kind of inherently built in better value on our tunes because we can go, okay, if we're gonna sell a core tune and it's just this, we don't have to account for the cost of these extra features that we still do the engineering for, right? But I think that it's nice that we were able to essentially build some value into it, and the value does actually go across the entire board since we've restructured it that way. So I think that's pretty cool. On that line of thought, for our big turbo upgrades, which have historically been our stage 3, the only requirement now is that we do require you to be on Apex, or the customer to be on Apex. Can you kind of break down why that is?
Yeah, so we want our stage 3 customers. They've gone all the way already. We're not going to sell them short by giving them a stage 3 file that doesn't have everything we can deliver to. So stage 3 requires Apex, but it's just no longer the only way to get those features. Stage 3 will always have them. Now our stage 2 files can have them too. Now our stage 1 files can have them as well.
Yeah. Recently, we started working with some poly intakes and covers and stuff. For this release, we have the Mark 8 intake poly lid. Kind of speak on that for me and how we kind of got to producing those.
We've done the carbon lids for a long time. We transitioned into like carbon boxes and then poly boxes and now poly lids. At the end of the day, people are looking for something that is maybe not the carbon aesthetic, but gives the same functionality. And so the poly box and the poly lid kind of bridge that gap between people wanting more like an OEM plus style look instead of something like, nice and flashy. So the poly lid in particular on the Mark 8 just matches our Mark 7 poly lid. Same kind of aesthetic. It looks like it's supposed to be there. And yeah, it's a really cool product.
Well, it changes the whole like style of the engine bay too. So it's a really great looking aesthetic piece by itself. But yeah, if you're not wanting the carbon aesthetic, you still have a choice.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just comparing OEM look to our intake with a poly lid, I mean, it's night and day difference. It looks like it's all supposed to be there, and it's all incorporated. It's really, really cool.
We've talked about some really cool hardware coming out, some software that we've been developing for quite a while, and absolutely killed it on that one. So good work from both of you guys and your teams. I know there's one really cool thing that we need to talk about still, and I'm gonna let Big Boss Man Pete talk about it.
Yeah, we've been working on this thing for a long time, like probably 10 years to get from vision to it finally exists. And it goes way back. It starts off around 2017 sometime. We came out with POWERlink, which was our way of flashing at home. And that really changed the game for people because you could flash in your garage or whatever you got a long enough cord, you can flash off your couch. But the big thing was that you could tune your car at home and you didn't have to go back to a dealer for whatever your tuner of choice. Every time you wanted to change octanes or go back to stock or do whatever, really made it the enthusiast's was able to do it, right? 2022, we completely changed the game again. And that was when we made POWERlink Mobile, where you could kind of flash. We put the power right in your hand, and you could flash off your iOS or Android device, wherever. And we also brought up the bar a little bit and included gauge display, data logging, and a bunch of other stuff. It was a total game changer. Today, we are changing the game again. We have put a command center in your pocket. You can literally change the entire behavior and demeanor of your car right there with just a couple of swipes on your phone. So if you can imagine, you're driving a B9 S4 or maybe a GTI, and you're up in the canyons and you want the car aggressive. You're feeling sporty. You've got a little overrun, tasteful overrun, crackles and stuff. You've got the throttle pedal kind of cranked up. You've got the exhaust open, all those sorts of things. And you're ripping those canyons. The next morning, you're on your way to work. You're stuck in traffic. It's stop and go. You're maybe a little hungover from a trip to the bar. You don't need all that in your life. And the old lady in the next lane over is mean mugging you. You can just whip it back out, hit a couple of sliders. Car's all civil now. No reflashing, no extra hardware. We are absolutely moving the game forward here in terms of the ease of use and the sheer amount of control we're giving to enthusiasts to kind of have their vehicle the way they want it. So I hit on a couple of the big things there: adjustable pedal, adjustable crackles, rolling anti-lag. You can adjust a bunch of those features in there. But Carter here was instrumental in developing it. Him and his team have just absolutely crushed it for, I don't know, a long time in the development of this. So Carter can kind of take it away and give you guys the nitty gritty of how that stuff works. But this is just absolutely the most impressive piece of technology that I've seen in a long time. In fact, the analogy I kind of use, if you're really a hardcore car guy, is like, this is like having 80% of the cool stuff that you wanted when you were a kid in a standalone, just right there in your pocket on your phone, from a chip flash or a tune, which is just incredible.
So let's do this, Carter. How about you do me a favor? I know there's a lot of them, but give me a quick rundown of the available adjustable features, and then we'll kind of dig into them just a little bit.
I'll for sure hit the heavy hitters, but there's so many of them that you might just have to go into the app and explore them. Here's the list that I've got, though. In my head, I kind of break it out in a couple sections. So we've got the live tuning section. That's going to be our build tab. That's where we have all of the toggles for hardware. So that covers things like 91 or 93 octane switching, live, at the pump, no need to flash. HPFP, high torque, low torque, whether you have an intercooler installed or not. There's a whole list of hardware that historically would have been a flash. We would have offered a file that specifically supports that hardware combo. Now in the build tab, all of those toggles, they send the data to the ECU and handle it for you. It's live, it's immediate, and you don't have to flash any of that anymore. So I see that as one section, is kind of the live tuning part. We've got the sound and feel, the things that kind of change the way that your car responds to you and the noises that it makes and how engaging it is. So that covers things like the adjustable crackles. The crackles are hugely adjustable. We've got 3 different presets with mild, medium, and aggressive. And then we've got the advanced tab that drops down the slider bars for you. That allows you to adjust the style, the minimum activation RPM, the intensity, the duration. There are thousands of combinations that are possible.
We'll dig into that a little bit more specifically. What else we got?
And it covers the exhaust flaps that you can have really fine-grained control over how that works, and the pedal mapping, the way that your accelerator pedal responds to your foot for both drive and sport. You've got control over that now. And then on top of that, we've got what I like to think of as our motorsports features. So we've got adjustable launch control that gives you multiple ways to configure your launch RPM, whether it be through the cruise control stock or through the app. And then we've got rolling anti-lag has been, if it's something we've already supported on the Mark 7 platform, for example, we've made it more aggressive and we've expanded that support to both B9 and Mark 8 now. And then for our manual guys, we've added no lift shift, so you can just really knock out those really high speed racing style shifts. And then on top of that, if the launch control is too aggressive or you're just making too much power for that front wheel drive VTI, or you're spinning all 4 tires on your R, we've got boost by gear now so that you can limit things down by gear, like first and second. If you're spinning, now you can really hook up, get it dialed into your tire setup, the conditions for the day, All of that is completely under your control now. And then say you're in the staging lanes at the drag strip, radiator fan control lets you sit in those staging lanes without having a heat-soaked intercooler or an overheating engine, just ready to rip for that track day. So we've got our convenience features, and that covers things like disabling the kickdown switch and enabling a valet mode. Say you want to hand your keys off to your 16-year-old son or your friend that you don't want driving at 120 miles an hour in your car. Valet mode will let you limit the power and just keep everything calm and mellow.
So yeah, there really is just a laundry list of different features. You guys should just go and play around in the app and go to the website, check it out. There's a lot of cool stuff, even down to valet mode. But Carter, can you give me just like a quick list of what is available right now at launch?
Yeah, so we didn't want to hit the market with such an awesome feature and just have it be for a few guys out there. So this covers all of Mark 7, including Mark 7.5. That's GTI, Golf R, GLI, all the Mark 7, Mark 7.5 platforms are covered out of the box. That's the same for B9 2-liter. All of those guys are covered. It's also the same for Mark 8. So we've got Mark 8, GTI, R, S3, covers all of those guys, all up front right now, and we're not stopping there.
Rad. I'm excited to see what other platforms we move it up to.
All right, thank you guys. That was awesome having you guys share all those cool things you guys have been working on so hard. I would just want to bring it back. We've got 3 awesome things that we rolled out this full throttle launch. One was the B9 A4. It's just absolutely incredible. I've driven it and the car just rocks. Core Pro Apex, making tuning more accessible for everybody that just wants to get in the door. They want an awesome stage 1 file, properly engineered. We've got that, but you can go Pro or Apex, get all those motorsport features. And then finally, the huge one, adjustable features, putting a command center for your car right there in your pocket. This is totally a game changer. Everything that you could want, exactly how you want it on your car at any moment, no reflashing, no extra hardware. Awesome. Don't wait for your tuner to catch up. We are moving ahead and we're getting this stuff done. So thank you guys for all your hard work, but especially thank all the enthusiasts out there. You guys are the reason why we get out of bed every day, why we get in here and work super hard to build this stuff, and we appreciate you guys. All of this awesome stuff is live on the website right now. You can browse the launch page to be able to see all of the details and a little bit of information on each, but everything is live. You can purchase it. If you're existing customers, you can upgrade to it right now. Go check it out, enjoy your vehicles, have fun with it.